I've been in two minds about recording this video, partly because I've recorded a video on Darby Vanity, and although I did not include the part where Jeffree retracted his statements because I was unaware, I have in fact put a pinned comment correcting Jeffree's input with those tweets on that certain video. And I also didn't know whether to make this video or not because there are people like Tamimi and Creepshow Art who are doing much more work and detailed content on this than I could do at this current moment in time. However, I do feel very strongly on this subject and it would be disingenuous for me not to make a video about it. Even if some people think that I'm parroting previous points, or others think that I've waited too long to make this video and it might no longer be relevant. The first aspect I want to talk about is the lack of credibility that Jeffree Star has. When you troll or lie online or say conflicting statements, whether or not it's to cause shock value or to troll, it creates an unreliable narrator. Many different influencers have this problem, such as Keemstar, who had a past of doing Call of Duty trolling battles, where he would say some pretty racist things for shock value and entertainment. And then there's Trisha Paytas, who has her trolling videos on the same channel as where she is being a genuine Trisha. There is no distinction between the two Trishas. Jeffree had the same problem back in the MySpace days, where he would make MySpace videos and tweets to shock people and to cause a reaction. But then when you also make tweets about certain people being undesirables, it causes a conflict on your platform. Are you being a shock value, or are you being genuine? Do you genuinely believe these things, or have you picked up this information and you are parroting out there to cause a chain reaction? It also adds another layer of uncertainty when you reach out to drama channels in the current day and claim that certain things were photoshopped, but don't clarify as to what specifically has been photoshopped. I would like to have an explanation as to why MySpace Jeffree is different than today's Jeffree, because while MySpace Jeffree went out of his way to offend and cause a reaction, today's Jeffree spurts out contradicting statements pretty much within minutes of each other. When you have a past of this certain behaviour, you should be upfront about what is real and what is not, because you are the source of that information. When you say that people are attempting to twist past tweets or take things out of context, that is not the problem of the people doing that, because they're actually just taking on board what you stated. You have to be upfront and honest and specify where things may have been faked, where things were lies, and where things were truths. Another problem with Jeffree Star is his mischaracterization of what the punk rock and rock and roll scene was and is. This is mostly because Jeffree Star was not punk rock. He was actually in the electronica and pop scene under the emo and scene subculture. That's not punk rock, and I believe he's purposefully using the term punk rock lifestyle and rock and roll lifestyle because of the connotations behind them. Types of rock subculture have had connotations with delinquency and being troublemakers as far back as they were beginning to evolve. There was the case of the mods versus rockers in the United Kingdom in 1950 to 1960, wherein there was a small scuffle between the two groups. The media contributed to public mass panic by categorizing these two groups as dangers to society, exaggerating the story. This caused a moral panic and caused the violence between the two groups to escalate more than it did beforehand. The media has always categorized rockers and punk rockers as being dangerous and druggies and people who want to cause trouble, when this isn't necessarily true. Within hardcore punk, there is a subculture known as straight edge, wherein the participants decide not to take any kind of substance, including drugs and alcohol. The origins for why the stigmatization of rockers and punk rockers exists is unclear. It's probably because it is something that is different, and many people who were drawn to these groups were outcasts. It's also because punk rock has a long history of political origins, and they speak out against oppressive governments. Rock the Casbah, a song by UK band The Clash, criticises the Iran's government for banning Western music within the country. The song Career Opportunities speaks on the job problems and the economic struggles in the United Kingdom at the time. They literally have a song called Know Your Rights. While every single genre of music is going to have an artist or band that have done terrible things and will continue to do terrible things until they get caught, it is 100% a mischaracterization of punk rock that people within that community and fans of punk rock would accept or have accepted things that Davi did. Because punk rock isn't just a music genre, it's a subculture that values the freedom of expression and the freedom of one's own body. While I can't speak for around the world, and maybe for that specific time, every single punk rock show I've been to seeks to protect children. You'll see grown men taking children on their shoulders who they've never met before, just so they can see the show and that they don't get caught up in the moshes and get hurt. I've seen a man be punched in the face and dragged out of the venue by the people in the crowd because they grabbed the ass of somebody in the mosh pit. To characterize that punk rockers and alternative rockers are accepting of having minors pulled on stage is so far from the truth, I could basically say he's lying at this point. Unfortunately, I think that Jeffree actually thinks that he was punk rock and that he was rock and roll. Unfortunately, no. He was in a niche emo scene electric pop genre. That's what it was, because if Davi had done that at an actual punk rock show, he would have been beaten. I could stake money on that. Another alarming thing is Jeffree's lack of interest of showing evidence for any of the claims he makes. In this Mum's Basement episode, which, by the way, Colossus Crazy pretty much slammed him down on that, and I was pretty much ready for Jeffree to be dissected by him. When asked if he believes that James Charles is still a danger, he doesn't respond. He gives the most elusive thing, and then says, well, I'll show you the evidence outside of the room. You can't make claims like this and not show evidence. It's just stupid. I don't want to out a victim, so you're calling them a victim. But you don't want to say whether or not James is a predator. If you had originally backed up your claims with evidence, then there would be no legal problems because there would be no slander issues with this. Because slander is knowingly misrepresenting a person and telling fallacious things about that person to hurt their reputation. If you'd coupled it with evidence that you believed was true, it can't be slander because you believe the evidence was true. Even if the evidence was faked or you were misinformed, it still can't be slander if you were led to believe that the evidence was in fact valid. There would be no issues. Of course, the best case scenario is for you to make those claims alongside verified evidence. But there are mistakes. People do make mistakes. So that's what you do. You make a claim with evidence, and if that evidence proves to be false, you correct yourself. You have made a statement and then been very vague about whether you believe that statement or not, and not provided evidence for or against it. At least with the Davi Vanity situation, there were eyewitness testimonies and there are now victim testimonies, but you've discredited one of the most known victims to cover your own ass. People are talking about how Jeffree is conniving and manipulative and cunning, but I think he's a moron. In one case, you have discredited evidence for the claims that you made, and in another case, you claim to have evidence but won't show it. How are people actually meant to believe you if you are discrediting evidence on one case and for another case you won't even show it? How are people supposed to believe you, Jeffree? How are people supposed to actually take what you say as complete gospel when there's either discredited evidence on your behalf or there's no evidence on your behalf? This is the kind of logic and brainpower I would expect from Dustbin Daily, who looks and sounds like if we were back in the hunter-gatherer times, he would be that one Nathandrel trying to make fire by banging a rock against a fully grown tree, while the rest of us had already found the flint and were eating by the fire pit fully cooked boar. Jeffree Star is either one of the most cunning puppet masters that ever did live on this earth, or his galaxy brain is in fact a universe that is shrinking instead of expanding at a rapid rate. Whatever the case may be, I highly recommend going and watching Creepshow Art's videos which detail Jeffree's contradictions and lies. Therefore, you'll get a much better idea of what I'm talking about. Before we go, I'd like to remind people that I've actually changed my Patreon tiers to be much cheaper. For $1 you'll get early access to videos that aren't uploaded to YouTube, and things that are content related, and for $5 you'll get access to my Discord server as well as the previous perks from the $1. I'll be working on my Attack on Titan video next. I promised more positive and light-hearted videos, and then bad things keep happening and I'm sad on the inside constantly. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.